Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, collectively agreed upon to be one of the worst quote-unquote remakes of all time. I briefly talked about this game once before, but I wanted to revisit this topic to see how the game aged for myself 3 years after its initial release. It still didn't age well. Last time I talked about something Pokemon related, many of you tuned in, so if that's the case again with this video, then that's your indicator to subscribe if you haven't yet already. Anywho, it's extremely difficult to call this game a quote-unquote remake when titles such as Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon exist. Wait, huh? Actually, no, that game isn't a remake. Screw that generation, man. Fight me. Now sure, we got a revamped Underground, contests, quality of life improvements that match a modern Pokemon game, except for whatever reason, reusable TMs don't exist. Regardless, enough changes to call it a remake rather than a remaster, but it's missing so many fundamentals from previous titles that in comparison, this game delivers nothing of value that the originals originally gave. Are you going to argue saying that they gave us access to mystery gift Pokemon like Arceus for example, when you needed to purchase a $60 title to even unlock it? What's stopping you from hacking in the item in the originals to claim your Arceus to avoid a $60 fee? Or that customization for the protagonist's clothing and a bike was a thing? Or even incorporating platinum material to acknowledge it even if it exists to begin with? Why not go based off platinum instead in that case? It just makes absolutely no sense to me. Now, historically, the opposite versions always outsell the third version of a said Pokemon game. For example, Ruby and Sapphire still sold more than Emerald, so making a remake based off Ruby and Sapphire makes sense, but despite not having the battle frontier in that game, it still incorporated events from Emerald's storyline and expanded it, allowing the players to actually have a shot at the mythical Pokemon locked away from Mystery Gift from long ago, which is hardly accessible anymore, and that being Deoxys itself. On top of that, still incorporating the entirety of the Pokédex at the same time, just like how Heart Gold and Soul Silver did, as well as just a cherry on top with how they went about doing it as well. Speaking of Heart Gold and Soul Silver, don't even get me started on the amount of content that game had. ORAS and HDSS, that sounded so weird to say. I'm gonna keep that in. Did a lot of things right for a remake, so when we take this logic and have Diamond and Pearl in the picture, then where on earth is this treatment? You have no trainer redesigns, no tweak to the story, the distortion world is non-existent, Battle Frontier will continue to never see the light of day, no adjustments to Team Galactic in redesigning them or introducing new characters, no full Pokédex incorporated, not even a single gimmick put in. The list just continues to go on. The only thing cool in BDSP, for me at least, was Reminisce Park. Having it replace Pal Park to catch previous legendaries was cool, but I'd argue there could have been much more that they could have done to put in that extra effort past remakes made when catching them. I really believe we could have gotten one of the best remakes out there known to date for the franchise, but of course, we give it to somebody else, still supervise them, and ultimately still fumble the bag. No disrespect to Ilka, it just sucks that their brand had gotten such a foul taste for being the ones working on the project. What I will give Ilka props for is the continued improvements they made to the game ever since the first trailer. The scenery, battle backgrounds, bloom effects were all nice in hindsight, but wasted opportunities to utilize all of that for remade cities and towns. The music was good. I feel like most Pokemon games always nail down their OSTs for the most part. I just couldn't believe my ears when they revealed a soundtrack that was in the version before they released a patch for the game to update it. That alone just raises questions as to how that comes down to a patch and not onto a finalized version of the game to begin with. Because later down the road, many years from now, where the Switch gets no support and someone buys BDSP, I think they'll be stuck with that version unless they sync up with another console to transfer the patch over. Which is kinda crazy to think about, especially now that we're headed towards a DLC pathway for the games now. But to see a couple fundamentals being brought to this while completely having to neglect what past games did to glorify why a certain region is cool and what it means behind it, I can't help but throw a fist in the air every time I think about it. Despite this, I don't think it's appropriate to completely shame this company. They just carried out what they were told to do, and given their other titles that they worked on, I can't imagine the possibilities they could have come up with for a new perspective into Sinnoh. I just feel bad because not only was this remake rushed out the wazoo, clearly since the same glitches still existed in the originals that people exploited, so I'm assuming they had the same source code to work with without double checking it to make sure things were right. You had Masuda directing the project with hardly any communication on social media about it, nor did Ilka talk about it. I'm still not sure if they weren't even allowed to speak on it to this day, because looking back, not even the Pokemon company seemed to have acknowledged what was going on either. Do you guys remember that tiny snippet of BDSP footage in the Switch OLED trailer? Do you guys remember what they tweeted afterwards to promote the game? Literally the older screenshots indicating that there was probably no clue, no idea that the game received a visual enhanced update over the course of its development. Just an absolute mess. Aside from all of this, there's the argument that if you want to play Sinnoh and have never played it before, then play BDSP. I strongly disagree with that statement. When Platinum is in literal existence, there should be no reason to play the downgraded version by any means. I don't think I need to explain why. It's pretty self-explanatory for those that know and have played Platinum before. But for those that haven't, I'll put it this way, especially if you haven't played Sinnoh before. It's such a much more complete package that truly brought out the definitive look to the region while adding so much more to the game that had originally not been put in. You have the utmost complete experience of Sinnoh. Why else would BDSP put something like a Rotom room for you to change the Rotom that you have to a different form when that wasn't even in the original game? That alone is an example of many that just tells you that you're not getting the proper and full Sinnoh experience with this quote-unquote remake. The fact that this reality came to fruition should be very concerning for the future of remakes Game Freak plans to release later down the line. If this is the level of treatment we are going to get for them moving forward, then count me out. I can't imagine what they would do to Gen 5 that will inevitably receive a remake treatment or something related to it of some kind. It's truly concerning, and the fact that Sinnoh was the region they decided to experiment with the stupidity that went into it is really heartbreaking to see. We've been asking for a Gen 4 remake for quite some time, and I still remember myself flipping out and going crazy when the announcement was released, only to be left upset with how it turned out. It was my first generation, so it 100% hurt me the most seeing something I grew up with receive such terrible treatment compared to past generations. Nowadays, thanks to Unity, which is the engine the game was built on, it allowed fans amongst the modding community to go crazy in putting forth efforts to make the game as best it could be. But if the level of achievements went to a crazy degree like this that wasn't in the supposed remake we should have gotten, then that just tells you that there is something completely wrong here. I do want to make one thing clear: if you enjoyed BDSP, good for you. I'd like to know why, and if you enjoyed them, I'd like to see some interesting discourse surrounding it. I don't think my personal opinion is going to change anytime soon about these games being the worst remakes of all time, but opinions in general should just be respected. Alas, at the end of the day, there will be people that enjoy and do not enjoy certain things. Unfortunately, it didn't stick with me this time around, and I'm a huge fan of the series, by the way. I read the comments in the last video, and I saw some interesting points being made towards subjects that you guys felt very strongly about, and I totally respect that. Let me know what you guys think about these games down below in the comments. Did you like it? With that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Ironically, the video topic is related to Gen 4, and I just so happened to make a ROM hack of Pokemon Platinum that you guys can go ahead and play right now. Join the Discord server for further details on that, and in there you'll find resources for your Pokemon playthroughs and a place to play Pokemon Battle Revolution online against other people, where we hold tournaments every month. Other than that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.